war did not slow after Kliszów. It intensified. The Polish-Saxon army had been shattered, scattered across the countryside, and Charles XII saw an opportunity. Krakow, the heart of Polish power, lay exposed. He moved fast, driving his army forward in a relentless march, determined to reach the city before it could be reinforced. On August 2nd, the Swedes arrived. The gates were closed, walls manned, defenders ready. But Charles did not wait. He rode forward, not with an army, but with barely 40 men, straight to the St. Florian Gate. He raised his voice and demanded entry. The defenders hesitated. They could not believe what they were seeing. The Swedish king, standing before them, almost alone. Charles pressed the moment,
Öffnet das Tor! Öffne das Tor!
calling out orders as if an entire army stood behind him.
Was will er? Sollen wir öffnen?
A bluff,
Ich weiß nicht.
and it worked.
Also gut,
The gate
ich
opened,
mach's.
just enough. And in that instant, the Swedes struck. They surged forward, forcing the gate, holding it open as more troops rushed in. Steel clashed in the narrow passage. A musket was raised toward the king and knocked aside. Within moments, the city was breached. The Swedes pushed through Krakow, moving fast, without hesitation, up toward Wawel, the fortress that dominated the city. The defenders, stunned by the sudden assault, collapsed almost immediately. And within hours, Krakow had fallen. No siege, no artillery, just speed, surprise, and audacity.
Vivat Carolus Rex.
But the victory did not end the war, because while Charles advanced, Augustus the Strong was already moving. King of Poland, Elector of Saxony. 2 crowns, but no secure ground. He could not afford a decisive battle, not again. So he moved, retreating before the Swedish advance, shifting his forces, avoiding the one thing Charles wanted most, a direct confrontation. Each time Charles pushed forward, Augustus pulled away, buying time, holding what he could, trying to survive a war he was no longer winning. And inside Poland, the cracks widened. The nobility turned on itself. Some remained loyal, others began to shift, calculating, adapting, searching for advantage. This was no longer just Sweden against Poland. It was a nation dividing from within. Still, the fighting continued. At Pułtusk in 1703, Swedish forces struck again. Fast, disciplined, precise. Cavalry thundered through the mire, then shattered the lines with steel. The Saxon formation collapsed in panic. Another victory. Then came Thorn, a fortified city, strong walls, a determined garrison. This time, the Swedes did not rush. They surrounded the city, cut off supplies, dug trenches into hard ground. The pressure built slowly. Days turned into weeks. Food ran low. Hope faded. Until at last, the city surrendered. But while the Swedes continued to take ground in Poland, Augustus continued to move, always just out of reach, refusing to be pinned down, refusing to be destroyed. And in the east, something was changing. Peter the Great had not forgotten Narva. He studied the defeat, rebuilt his army, reshaped his command, and in 1704, he struck back. Narva, once Sweden's greatest victory, fell to the Russians. The war was shifting. Still, Charles pressed on, because now he had another plan. If Augustus would not submit, he would be replaced. A new figure emerged, Stanislaw Leszczynski, raised by Swedish arms, supported by those who had turned against Augustus, a king born out of war. But Augustus refused to yield. He gathered new forces, moved again, prepared to strike where he could. At Warsaw in 1705, the Swedish held the prize. The Saxons moved to reclaim the capital, striking with a massive force to break the occupation. But the Swedish few charged from the gates, shattering the assault before it reached the walls. The city remained in Swedish hands. The Saxon dream of a comeback was crushed. And once again, Augustus's crown slipped away.
Score.
Soon after, Stanislaw was crowned, a new king for a broken nation. But the crown rested solely on Swedish steel. Charles would not wait. He would not negotiate. He would finish it. But the enemy struck from two sides at once. To the west, the Saxon heartland preparing to strike. To the east, the Tsar's shadow loomed over Grodno. A Russian army, vast and growing. A threat that could no longer be ignored. If Charles moved on Saxony now, the Russians would burn Poland behind him. At the gates of Warsaw, the Swedish hammer split. Charles turned east. He marched into the frozen depths of Lithuania to face the rising storm. He did not storm the walls of Grodno. He sealed them. The Swedish grip tightened as the Russian army withered in the cold. Trapped, waiting. But to the west, a second war erupted. Under General Rengskjold, a separate strike force vanished into the forests. Hardened by years of war, disciplined, relentless. While the king held the east, Rengskjold became the shield of the west. The Swedish army was divided, but never weak. Two commanders, two fronts, one purpose. In the east, a trap was set, and in the west, a slaughter was coming near a small town called Fraustadt.